Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Barbadians, brothers and sisters. Let me first tell you, Happy New Year, and welcome to the Democratic Labour Party's first press conference for the year of our Lord, 2026. This press conference will be conducted under the auspices of our opposition leader, the Honorable Ralph Torn, KSC MP, and next to him, Senator Andrea Worrell. We are also joined by the following media houses: the Marcia Weeks Show, the Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation, News on the Go, Starcom Network, The Nation News, and Barbados Today. I will now hand over to our opposition leader, the Honorable Ralph Torn, to give his remarks.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Happy New Year to everyone in Barbados and across the diaspora. Happy New Year to the media. Always a pleasure seeing you at the opposition office. Happy New Year to my fellow panelists and to the members of the Democratic Labour Party, those of us who have taken time off from their busy schedules to join us this morning. We are appreciative. Let me say at the outset that we have invited Ms. Verla de Pisa. Verla, as you know, is a practicing lawyer. She has been the chairman of our Commission on Crime, very successful Commission on Crime that produced its report last year, still getting used to 2026. And Verla is in court this morning, and I don't know if she'll be able to join us later. But Verla would have been updating Barbadians on the report which was produced by her commission and this party last year, because we intend to say something about crime this morning. We've just come out of the, well, we are just coming out of the season of Christmas. I think tomorrow is the last day of the season. Just 1 second, please. Tell him to go across. Tell Bascom to go. He's distracted. Good. He's not very loud, is he? No, move him completely. Let him come out there. He's down there nodding his head. So. I'm sorry about that. Now, during my Christmas message, I lamented the fact that the season, which is normally associated with peace, has no longer been characterized by that peace. And in consistency with that message, the season of Christmas saw violence again take place in this country. We have had, up to I think yesterday, the tragic loss of life again. We've had a violent escapade on, I think, when some persons alighted from a pleasure cruise here in Bridgetown. Let me say and express on behalf of the Democratic Labour Party and on behalf of the candidates of the Democratic Labour Party, let me express condolences to the families of those who lost their lives tragically yesterday. And let us commiserate with those persons who were in proximity to the violent event that took place after the cruise. As I said, the violence has been unabated, and that speaks a lot to the state of life in Barbados at present. Now, our campaign has been unabated as well. All of our candidates have been in the field. I suspect some of them took Christmas Day off. I certainly did. Of course, a few did not take Christmas off. But I mentioned the unabated campaign because it has given us the chance to listen to people, to listen to Barbadians. We've spent a lot of time talking to Barbadians, not at Barbadians, but talking to Barbadians over the Christmas season, and just prior thereto, we spent a lot of time talking with Barbadians, listening to Barbadians. And much of what we will say going forward will relate itself to what Barbadians are saying to us about the state of life in Barbados. In their country, I want to say that we have listened to Barbadians. Now, we've had a government that has continued according to its style and content of governance in this country, and it has not left Barbados in a happy place. I want to say that we have a government of injustice, intimidation, insult, and indulgence, and I will explain all of that. As you know, and I'm on the theme of governance, this is a government that has functioned without transparency and accountability, and if you think those are cliches, they're not. There's the evidence, there's the physical evidence of this government's refusal to govern according to the principles of transparency and accountability. And if you want evidence of that, we've said this before and we're going to continue saying it. This is a government that is absolutely refusing to tell Barbadians the cost of many of its projects. And the one that is most obvious would be the projects at that square mileage at Newton. We insist, we in the Democratic Labour Party will not forget and will not allow the government and the people of Barbados to forget that millions on millions of dollars have been spent at Newton. It is unoccupied on both sides of the road. There's the dome, admittedly a very beautiful structure when one looks at it from the road. But there's no accountability, there's no transparency. We have not been told how much it costs. We have not been given any firm idea as to the purpose of what I call that dome structure. The other side is disgraceful, to be honest. There's what we have disparagingly and facetiously called the chicken pen, the giant chicken pen. That monstrosity, which is blowing in the wind up there at Newton. It was supposed to be a Carifesta project. I believe they had one event there, patched together event, and in the aftermath, absolutely nothing else has happened there. No one knows the precise cost. Look, it is government. They must have a cost. They must be able to say to us Barbadians how much it costs. That's basic information. They are refusing to tell Barbadians how much that building has cost. Now, if it has cost in the vicinity of what I've heard now is about $30 million, please tell Barbadians that is not the responsibility of the opposition to be guessing. And it is taxpayers' money. Let me say as well that they have breached certain rules. I understand, and I will now ask the government to say to Barbadians whether that building went to tender. I will also ask the government to name the company that constructed the building, and if the government chooses not to name the company, I will name the company. And not only name the company, I'm going to ask the government to give the names of the principals who are involved in that company. And Barbadians will find those names to be very, very interesting. So that we have the evidence, we have the physical evidence of lack of transparency, lack of accountability, and wild squandermania. The projects extend. There's a project just next door. This is on the slave burial ground. I'm told by competent people that a lot of the expense has been involved in terms of massive amounts of concrete being poured on what we concede is sacred ground. Again, no costing. It's a government project. Who are the contractors? No one knows. Again, we ask, have these projects been subjected to tender in accordance with the law? Our information, well, I won't say now what is our information. We're going to continue to ask the government these questions on behalf of the people of Barbados. So that, media, I invite you, I think you have a responsibility, and we're not going to be pressuring you. But we think that it is not only our responsibility, but it is the responsibility of the media. A media that is concerned that it should do its job like the fourth estate does its job. That body of persons, that human population that we turn to, that the people of the country turn to when there are no answers available elsewhere, and there's certainly no answers available from the government. And I would ask the media in this country to ask of the government those questions in addition to us asking them. Did it go to tender in accordance with the laws of Barbados? How much did it cost? And who are the contractors? And not only who are the contractors, but who are the persons involved in the contracting company? Media, you're going to find the answers to those questions extremely interesting. I'm not going to give the answers this morning. Again, we're giving the government the opportunity to give the answers to those questions. This country has labored along with the last 8 years now, 7 years of famine. Integrity legislation was passed in the House, I think at the end of 2018. I participated in the debate. And 7 years later, that legislation has not been proclaimed. 7 years later, please, the people of Barbados want to know why this government has plodded along, bringing legislation to Parliament, withdrawing it. But the legislation about which we are concerned today is the integrity legislation. And we all know what integrity legislation is about. Integrity legislation requires officials, public officials, and members of the government to disclose their assets so that Barbadians will be able to say something about the state of government. That is what integrity legislation is about. It prevents people, or rather, let me put it differently, it requires public officials and members of government to live financial lives of integrity. Now, I'm not going to reflect on people's financial lives, but all I'm going to say this morning is that the time has come in this country. This is a new year, and this government must be called upon to pass or proclaim that integrity legislation into the law, and if they cannot, give some good reason why the integrity legislation cannot become law. The citizens have been begging this government again for freedom of information legislation. We don't have it. 8 years, and this government is boasting about its willingness and its propensity to communicate with the people of Barbados. They talk about openness. And we come here this morning and we're sitting and asking basic questions on behalf of the people of Barbados in relation to public spending, in relation to governance in this country. No answers. No Freedom of Information Act. 7 years later. More seriously, the Auditor General. As you know, the Auditor General, the Office of the Auditor General is the watchdog on government spending. At this point in time, there is no appointed Auditor General in this country. Try to picture a situation in which you have no Chief Justice. And I make the comparison because the judiciary is a constitutional body. It is separate and apart from the government. The Office of the Auditor General is a constitutional office. It's a constitutional body. It has a life of its own. It's an independent body that does not derive its powers from government, and it is not subject to the influence or control of the government. An office as important as that is a watchdog on government spending, is without anyone in charge of that office in a permanent capacity. I've met with the Auditor General before his retirement, and of course I met with him in my capacity as Chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, and he lamented the shortage of staff, and that he had been looking all over to get staff for his department. And it's not a department, it is a constitutional body. Like the courts or Parliament, it is a constitutional body, and he is understaffed. The department is understaffed. And a government that is on a rampage of spending is refusing to properly staff the public accounts. I beg your pardon, is refusing to properly staff the Office of the Auditor General. You can draw your own inferences. You can make your own conclusions. But why is government reluctant to give adequate staff to the Office of the Attorney General? It is understaffed. I'm not guessing about that. The former retired Auditor General told me that, and we had discussions in relation to how he could go about finding staff, but the problem is government, I think, has been less than cooperative in staffing that department. does government have an interest to serve with the office of an Auditor General, which is understaffed? We don't know. But we are calling on the government to immediately fill the office, and not only fill the office, we are calling on the government to adequately staff that constitutional body. Not going to keep you here the whole day. The Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Again, like the Office of the Auditor General, the Electoral and Boundaries Commission is constitutional and it is independent. At least it ought to be. Barbadians were shocked. Well, some Barbadians who have an appreciation for these things were extremely shocked recently when correspondence came out of the Cabinet Office pertaining to matters of electioneering, pertaining to matters of the Electoral and Boundaries Commission. The Electoral and Boundaries Commission is an independent constitutional body that has the sole and exclusive authority for the management and control of elections in this country and all matters pertaining to elections. It is not the business of the Cabinet. It is not the business of the Cabinet Office. It is not the business of the government. And I'll pause and say this. I was absolutely shocked. And I think it was around the time just prior to the Barbados Labour Party annual conference, when I heard a minister referring to the Electoral and Boundaries Commission, and he used the pronoun we. He said what we are doing, and we intend to do this. That's wrong. That is wrong. There is a sharp divide, or there ought to be a sharp divide, between the government, and when I say government, I'm talking about the Cabinet. There ought to be a sharp divide between the Cabinet, the government, and the Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Like oil and water, they will not mix. There can be no admixture between the activities of government and the Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Barbadians need to understand this, because unless we understand these legal and technical niceties, we could get lost in a situation in which we believe, well, the EBC is government and government is the EBC. No, it is not. The EBC, the Electoral and Boundaries Commission, is an independent body which speaks by itself, for itself, and has that sole and exclusive authority to speak for its activities. The government, I'm sorry, I make the charge that the government has been intermeddling in the affairs of the Electoral and Boundaries Commission, and I say this. It is to our certain knowledge that postmen were hired to carry out an enumeration exercise. Now I'm asking the government, who gave the order for postmen to do an enumeration exercise? Was it the Electoral and Boundaries Commission, or did the government participate in that exercise? And did the government promise to pay them $3,000 to conduct an enumeration exercise? And did the government say to them that they would be incentivized with an additional payment of $1,000 if they did it quickly? I'm speaking in simple language today. In other words, they were given a month to complete and told that if they could complete the enumeration exercise in less than a month, the pay to them would be increased from $3,000 to $4,000. This is a transactional government, and this is a government that is continuing to make transactions at the expense of democracy and justice in this country. This is a very serious time. These are dangerous times. And I repeat, this is a government that continues to flout the laws of this country. This is a government that continues to disrespect the principles of separation of powers. This is a government that continues to blur the lines between its own authority and power, and the sole and exclusive authority and power of other constitutional agencies. I'm referring to the Electoral and Boundaries Commission. And prior hereto, I have referred to the office of the Auditor General. But what has been the result of this? A few Sundays ago, I think one of the newspapers in this country published a list with 8,291 names, correct, Senator? 8,291 names. At the time, we charged this government with seeking to micromanage, and I go further, to steal the election, and I make no apology for that. The Prime Minister can travel as far as she wants and accuse us of defaming this country. But I say the evidence is there that this government has been involved in the internal management of the EBC, as evidenced by correspondence coming out of the Cabinet Office, as evidenced by certain persons in this country making authoritative statements for and on behalf of the Electoral and Boundaries Commission. We say that. And we say that transactions have been entered into with public officers who are not normally concerned in the business of the EBC, and that they have been incentivized with a rushed enumeration exercise. There's a gentleman in this room called Mr. Ainsley Granger. We're happy to report that he is a candidate for St. Michael East for this party and doing exceptionally well. He was placed on a list of 8,291 persons who were to be disenfranchised. He was to be deprived of the right to vote. Of course, he has sought to correct that. Now, when you subtract Mr. Granger's name from the 8,291, you come to 8,290. We cannot be sure that those 8,290 persons have taken any steps to have their names placed back on the register. There are persons who live overseas. There are persons who live here. Mr. Granger's name stands as evidence that the exercise has been characterized by irregularity. How many more of those 8,291 persons are to be disenfranchised? In other words, how many of them are to be prevented from voting? We don't know. And that's why we have made the charge that it seems that this government is on a trajectory to disenfranchise. And if we don't want to use that word, to prevent people from voting. And we will repeat the charge. In spite of what the Prime Minister of this country feels, we are repeating the charge that this government has involved itself in an election process of registration in breach of the law, and it seems that some persons will be disenfranchised. I go further. I have spoken to constituents recently, one of them, and more than one, whose names appeared on that list. They are alive, well, and living in Barbados. Their names appeared on that list for disenfranchisement. Now, normally when this happens, and it is something that has happened before, you go into your registering office in your constituency, and there's supposed to be 30 of them, 30 constituencies, 30 registering offices. I turn from the government now and ask the Electoral and Boundaries Commission. I've accused the government. I'm not accusing the Electoral and Boundaries Commission, but I'm calling on the Electoral and Boundaries Commission to fill those offices, those registering offices, in all 30 constituencies. And I'm going to ask the Electoral and Boundaries Commission respectfully if all of those offices have been filled, or if there are only 26 offices, registering offices, for which, or to which, disenfranchised persons or persons who are not on the list can go into those offices and have their names replaced on the register. These are officers who deal with irregularities in relation to voting, and not only irregularities, but instances in which persons may be disenfranchised, instances in which persons may not be allowed to vote. So that when we make the charge, Prime Minister Motley, when we make the charge, we are making it on the basis of evidence that is before us. It appears as if this government is rushing into an election, and there are people, 8,291 persons, listed as ineligible to vote. Some are alive, some are dead, but we speak on behalf of those who are alive. We speak on behalf of those who wish to vote. We speak on behalf of those who intend to vote. And we call upon the Electoral and Boundaries Commission, not the government, this is not the government's business, to establish that human and institutional infrastructure so that those persons may find themselves back on the voters list. If they are not back on the voters list, we will continue to accuse someone of trying to steal the election. And it is a charge that we are going to make seriously, and it is a charge from which we are not going to resile unless these matters are attended to with some urgency. It is one thing to rush into an election with urgency. Well, deal with the human and institutional infrastructure which will guarantee that the election is free and fair, and free from fear, And we have the fear that there are persons, considerable numbers of persons, who they intend, and when I say they, the government, that the government intends to disenfranchise by its rush. Another issue of governance. Look, we have had several petitions from the nurses, police officers, and I want to speak about the police officers today. I was driving through Bridgetown last week. I'm not going to give his name, obviously, and a policeman stopped me and thanked me and this party for the agitation that we have made on their behalf over the last 2 years, certainly in terms of promotions and pay. We again agitated a few weeks ago, and 2 days after that agitation, oh man, the police officers found that their salaries were increased, enhanced. And they're not thanking the government, they're thanking the Democratic Labour Party for its agitation over the last 2 years to ensure that they are accorded their financial rights. They're not applauding the government. They're not applauding the government for giving them what is due to them. They feel insulted, though, that the government thinks that they are so unintelligent that they can give to them what they promised 2 years ago on the eve of an election, and that they have somehow done them a favor. Well, they've done them no favor. But I'm going to add to the police today, and I'm going to turn to the prison service, and I'm going to turn to the fire service. And I'm going to do this because we have had petitions from prison officers in this country. We've had recent petitions from fire service officers in this country who are complaining about the injustice of supersession based on favoritism. And I want to say, and I want to invite Barbadians to consider that these two departments fall under a certain ministry. And I go farther, a certain minister. And there are accusations being made of supersession, of advantage being given to certain officers, certain junior officers, over persons who have been in the service. And one told me he was in there 22 years. And that is happening. And the public service is being disrupted by this government. The public service in this country is being disrupted by this government in relation to the prospects of men and women who have given long years of service and who are sitting and watching supersession occur right under their noses. And it is unfair. And not only supersession, but it is based apparently on some measure of favoritism. So please, government, please understand, and I want the people of Barbados to understand, that these unfair practices have taken place within the prison service, the fire service, the question of the police. I mean, that's a sad tale. It really is a sad tale that people are retiring, and just on the cusp of retirement, they're being given something called senior constable status, patronizing, condescending, contemptuous, insulting to their intelligence, and they're going home with a token. And this government actually believes that people are impressed by these tokens, by these insults to their intelligence. Well, we're going to ask the government to stop it. We're going to ask the government to, respect public officers in this country. The last initiative at the end of the year to promote, or not promote, to appoint 2,000, it is not a favor done to the public servants in this country. The 2007 legislation long anticipated that. 7 years later, 7 years of famine later, the government comes and guarantees appointment. And we say to those beneficiaries of the appointment, congratulations. But we say to the government, you've not done them any favor. The 2007 legislation long anticipated that these persons should be appointed by legitimate expectation after 3 years. Thank you, Senator. That's why when I began, I said that this government is treating the people of Barbados with injustice, intimidation, insult, and indulgence. Indulgence. We live in a country in which, again, and I'm going to make this charge seriously, Media, do you all know, people of Barbados, do you know that state funds are possibly being used for private parties in this country? We're supposed to be afraid of the government. We're supposed to be afraid to speak these truths. When taxpayers' money is being taken up to sponsor or to invest in private parties, for-profit parties, is that happening in Barbados government? The people of Barbados are entitled to have an opposition courageous enough to ask the government those questions. And, you know, I use the word indulgence. And everybody now knows that this government has a way of coaxing the people of Barbados by way of diversion, by way of distraction, into feel-good events. You go to a party, and you see your government ministers there, and everybody dancing and having a ball, and you think that all is well. And that's fine. You go and you enjoy the party. I mean, we have some of the best musicians in the world, to be frank with you. But is it government's business to be investing taxpayers' money in these private events for the purpose of a feel-good among young people? And when the party ends and you go back to your regular lives and you're confronted by the high cost of living and by the violence and by all the other ills, they hold another party. And you're told that this is good government. But who is paying for it? I ask the government again, is this government involved in the sponsorship and financial investment into private parties, private for-profit parties? It's a question, government. Please answer. Please be transparent enough. Please be honest enough. Please have a sense of public accountability to the people of this country. In other words, what is happening to our monies? Again, you're going to hear us on a future occasion talk about the proposal, Senator, to ship $225 million. Divide that by 2. A little over $100 million, because they have to do it in foreign exchange. And this government is proposing to take up your money. This is a government that is not assisting young business in this country. This is a government that has left the young farmers in this country to peril. This is a government that is bringing in pork from Suriname, frozen pork, and calling it fresh pork, sending the local pig farmers out of business. And this is why we call this press conference, because these are serious and terrible times in this country, when the government is participating in activities that is oppressing and suppressing local commercial effort that concerns the survivability and the right to survive of young business people. Not everybody is going to get a job in the public service. Not everybody is going to get a cushy job in the private sector. And when they go into private employment, it is not only the vet keepers that government should support. Perhaps they should support them as well. But there are a lot of young farmers, there are a lot of young business people in this country who will not get a chance to have their businesses capitalized. And I'm sorry if I sound angry. They will not have a chance to have their businesses capitalized. And the government proposes to send over $100 million out of the consolidated fund to unnamed persons. Who are these unnamed persons? Is it to the pig farm in Suriname? Who owns the pig farm in Suriname, by the way, government? Who owns it? Where's this money going? And people in this country are suffering. And, you know, they don't like to hear me say that people in this country are suffering. Suffering perhaps is private, but suffering has become our public business. And an opposition is obligated to expose suffering even when it is private. I always say that justice is not entirely spoken unless the suffering are allowed to speak. And there are a lot of people in this country who are suffering from crime, high cost of living, their whole set of ills, violence and crime. Now, permit me then to turn to crime. And I'll be brief on this. Won't be long. We were told that there was a pleasure cruise and there was a shooting. We are not going to remind Barbadians of the gory details of that incident, except to say that it caused the closure, I'm told, of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital for some short time. so that if somebody was on the way to the QEH with a heart attack or some perilous condition, were they allowed to enter because of violence in this country? The point we're making here is that violence has a very far reach. You don't have to be shocked, nor do you have to be earshot of the noise of violence, but it is affecting all of us. We are all in fear, and it is mental and psychological, so we are all victims of crime in this country. But here is the Prime Minister's solution to violence. Now, I've been hearing in recent times, oh man, we like the language that the Prime Minister uses. We like how the Prime Minister talks. Same old phrases over and over. Feel good. Feel good. Our long speeches. And at the end of those hour-long speeches, let us look for the substance. And let us ask the Prime Minister if she honestly believes that anti-terrorism legislation is the appropriate legislation to deal with violence in this country. If you felt that way, government, why over the last 7 years of violence in this country did you not legislate this anti-terrorism law? Why not? Is it something you stumbled upon recently? Well, let me tell you something about this opposition. For the last 2 years, this opposition has demanded of this government that it pass anti-gang legislation. We've had the courage to do that. And we know how that puts us at risk. Maybe somebody in this country knows that the proposal for anti-gang legislation puts its proponents at risk, but we must have the courage not only to speak on behalf of Barbadians, but to speak the truth on behalf of Barbadians. This country needs anti-gang legislation. It is inappropriate legislation to propose anti-terrorism. Sounds fancy, sounds good. Nobody's quite sure what it means, but it is pretty talk. It is pretty language. 10 persons shot. Oh, that is akin to terrorism. Let's get an anti-terrorism law before the Parliament. I'm going to be brutally frank today. Even at risk. In 2018, a certain gentleman strode across the road on his way to Parliament. Today, that gentleman probably strides across the corridors of a facility in St. Philip. This takes courage. But it is only truth that will lead to some justice in this country. How did he get into Parliament? We know how he got into St. Philip. What is the government's response? Because Barbadians have been whispering about it for a long time. It has been spoken about in dark places. We bring it to the light of this media conference. We spent the last year or two complaining about the peace program. And we all know about that. And we know that public funds were used by the government to give financial satisfaction to men who self-confessed. They were on the front page of the Nation, who self-confessed to nefarious activity. And the government has to answer for all of this. The government has to answer for that relationship between certain elements and officialdom in this country. And the evidence is there. The evidence is there. We've whispered about it for too long. For too long. And that has resulted, I think, in these inappropriate, inapt proposals for anti-terrorism legislation, when we will not come to the root of this problem unless we implement or legislate anti-gang laws in this country. By now it is clear, based on what the Commissioner has said repeatedly, based on what senior officers have said repeatedly, that a lot of the violence is rooted in gang activity. If that is so, why is this government so afraid of anti-gang legislation? When Trinidad was not afraid, they have it. When Jamaica was not afraid, they have it. When St. Kitts was not afraid, they have it. I think the Bahamas may have it as well. And I think I think Antigua may have it. They're about Turks and Caicos, they have it as well. So that there are about 5 or 6 countries in the Caribbean that have been similarly afflicted by violence. It is proven that that violence is related to the existence of gangs. Those countries have passed anti-gang legislation. This government has previously promised to pass anti-gang legislation, but they have not. I asked the people of Barbados to ask this government, why the reluctance to pass anti-gang legislation? And I say to the Prime Minister, anti-terrorism legislation is inappropriate. It will not go to the heart nor the root of the problem. I say it is a diversion, it is a distraction from the real issue. Government, please bring yourself. Please bring yourself to pass anti-gang legislation to protect the people of this country and to protect young men who may be lured into gang activity. We have to have the courage not only to say it, but we have to have the courage to do it. Because this country is spiraling out of control. The violence, there's an explanation for the violence. There's a reason for the violence. The government does not go there firing guns. So in that way, you can't blame the government, but the government has a responsibility. The government has an executive and legislative responsibility to deal with the issue of crime in this country. The government is failing this country by its refusal to bring proper, appropriate, and adequate legislation before the Parliament. Why is the government so afraid, though? Why is the government so afraid and or reluctant to pass this legislation? Again, today is the 5th of January. On the 5th of January, we, in the Democratic Labour Party, again, call on the government to pass anti-gang legislation. And we bring our legal minds together. Certainly, Ms. DePisa is a lawyer. Ms. DePisa is also a criminologist. Mr. Hincks is a criminologist, and he was the deputy chairman of our commission. And so our 11-person commission was well staffed by persons with expertise in criminal law, in criminology, and sociology. Not like the commission or council that the government has, which is probably now inactive, which was established months ago. Yes, I can see it. And no report, no update has been given. It was another government promise. It was another empty government promise. Here, Barbadians, here's what the Democratic Labour Party has been able to offer to the people of this country. Solutions to the question of crime, the issue, the scourge of crime in this country. This voluminous document is evidence of the work that this Democratic Labour Party has done in terms of not solving crime, or not removing crime entirely from the face of this country, but making efforts, meeting a public responsibility to deal with the question of crime. This government continues to fail the people of Barbados by its non-efforts, by its unwillingness to deal with crime and to deal with violent crime. So when you hear this nonsense about terrorism, this is no occasion for anti-terrorism legislation. This is an occasion for anti-gang legislation to get to the heart of the problem, in which our 11-year-old children, there are 11-year-old children in this country, Senator, who are being drawn into crime as a means of survival. That is the reality. That is what is happening in Barbados. 11-year-old children, as soon as they enter secondary school, and I want the people in the diaspora to know this. You have been absent from this country for a long time, and what is happening in this country will make your heart bleed. That your little children that you left behind in this country are being drawn into criminal activity, and this government finds itself unable and unwilling to deal with the problem that is destroying this country and coming to us with nonsense about anti-terrorism legislation. We've asked them for 2 years, and I repeat, we've asked this government for the last 2 years to pass anti-gang legislation to save our little children, to save our 16-year-olds. We saw last week a 16-year-old and a 17-year-old boy, 2 boys who have not lost their mother's features, heading towards Dodds. Murder charges? That's what is happening in our country. And the government sits by and the head of that government sits by and refuses to make contact with legislative solutions, with sociological solutions, with political solutions, and tells us about anti-terrorism. What anti-terrorism? What? Nonsense. Pass anti-gang legislation. Have social programs in this country to save the children of this country. Don't take up $100 million US, $100 million plus US dollars to send to unnamed countries or to unnamed companies. You don't tell Barbadians who they are. You don't tell Barbadians what they're doing. They will be allowed to operate in their country, and you can't take half of that. You can't take a quarter of that. You can't take 1/10 of that and commit to the children of this country. Because a 16-year-old with a gun is a child. A 17-year-old with a gun is a child. He can't vote. He is a child. Government, what are you doing with him? This is what this Democratic Labour Party has done for this country. In opposition. And if we can do this in opposition, we pledge and we promise to you that we are going to be a good and honest government. And if they call the election in January, we're ready. February, we're ready. March, April, May, June, July, August, this Democratic Labour Party is ready. We have assembled a group of outstanding young and not so young people to save this country from this band called the Barbados Labour Party. We've assembled good young people to save this country, to save our young children. And we intend not to solve the problem of crime. We can't solve it. There is no government that will erase crime from this country. But there must be a government that intends to confront it. And to confront it in constructive and progressive ways. By negotiation. And when I say negotiation, I'm not talking about negotiation with criminals. I am talking about negotiation between our agencies, our police agency and our social welfare agencies. Negotiate a solution to the problem of crime and violence in this country. But as I say, this government is taking up monies, throwing away at Newton. This government is proposing to take up $100 million, throw it overseas. This government takes up money, throw it into FETs. This government takes up more than $500 million. The government's travel bill, people of Barbados, is extremely high. Extremely high. When the Prime Minister went to Algeria or wherever it was to say that one blow kill old cow, it cost more than the hospital wanted that weekend for the equipment that they were asking for. That is where this country is at present. This country is in a perilous position. Christmas has not been an occasion of peace. The violence continues unabated in this country. And we are asking the people of this country to give the government a rest. We are asking the people of this country to consider that this Democratic Labour Party is well and truly able to be a government in this country. I repeat, we have assembled 30 honest and upstanding citizens who pledge to take this country forward, who pledge integrity legislation. And in a future press conference, I will tell you that the members of this party, in a future press conference, that the members of this party will declare their assets entirely to prove to you, to give you that undertaking, that we will be a good and honest government. These media conferences will be held periodically but often, so that the issues of the day will be addressed, so that the state of this party, the readiness of this party to occupy government will be clearly expressed and proved. So I want to thank you very much for attending this morning. I want to thank the people of Barbados for continuing to invest your confidence in us. I want to thank you for receiving us at your doors, in the shops, on the streets. And we promise to do all that we say we are going to do, including the reduction of VAT. But we will have more to say on that. Thank you very much, media. Thank you. Thank you. Sure.
Thank you very much, Leader Torn. We will now open the floor to the media to ask their questions. We would kindly ask that you refer all questions surrounding the Venezuelan situation to CARICOM.
I'll say that.
Please introduce yourselves and your media host on your first question.
Good morning. Happy New Year to everybody.
Thank you, Ms. Weeks.
Marcia Weeks from the Marcia Weeks Show. As you say, you're accusing the government that you believe that they're trying to steal the election.
Yes.
My question to you this morning, to the Democratic Labour Party, are you going to make this complaint internationally, because there are bodies that monitor and observe and might be able to give a warning ahead of time? Is this something that, because you're so concerned about it, and as citizens we are as well, are you going to reach out to any international bodies about this?
No. There's something in law called exhausting your remedies. There's an immediate remedy of appeal to the Electoral and Boundaries Commission. I have drawn the distinction between the government and the Electoral and Boundaries Commission. All issues of irregularity, we will appeal to the Electoral and Boundaries Commission as a first step. If we find no resolution there, Ms. Weeks, we will appeal to the courts of this country. We are not going to any international body when we have bodies here in which the problem may be resolved. We intend to resolve this problem by local effort, by local address or local appeal to local agencies. The Electoral and Boundaries Commission itself, who we have not accused of anything. We don't think that there's any mischief going on there. We think the mischief is going on in government. So we are going to appeal to the Electoral and Boundaries Commission. We are certainly going to ask them to establish those facilities, those 30 facilities with registration offices and officers, so that all matters of irregularity can be addressed to them. Those are absent this morning as far as I'm aware. And if we don't find resolution there, we're going to the court, to the Supreme Court in this country.
Have you started that process as yet?
No, not at, well, we've started the process in terms of making the appeal to the EBC. But I want to tell you this, and I'm thankful for the question. I spoke to a gentleman in St. John, and he doesn't drive. And I found myself saying to him, look, you got to go to Warren's. How is he going to get to Warren's? So that we have had to ask him to take it to our office in St. John, our person appointed to deal with these things, so that he can deal with the issue. So there's the logistical and practical problem of people addressing the matter. You know Warren's. Warren's is the place of heaviest traffic in Barbados. What's the bus service to Warren's? A bus from Oistins to Spikestown. So there's hardly a bus service to Warren's. Warren's is the busiest place in Barbados. Warren's is hostile to pedestrians. Warren's is hostile to old people. And so that is why we need the registering officers in the constituencies. They're not making it easy for those 8,291 people, well, 290, because I think Mr. Granger has resolved his own problem, because he has a car and because he's young.
Thank
you. Yes, please. What's your name, please, ma'am?
Robinson.
Oh, Mikron. Welcome.
You warned that the government is trying to steal the elections, yes?
Yes, I did. Unapologetically.
Are you prepared to take legal action if names are not placed on the list?
Course.
What's the biggest concern?
I just told Ms. Weeks that there are people on that list who are not dead, they're not overseas, they're here, and their names are on the list. And unless those names are properly returned to the list, we intend to take court action. And Ms. Robinson, I'll tell you this, the government has until January the 31st to prepare a final list. So all this rumor you're hearing about the 19th of January and all kinds of nonsense, the government has to, not the government, the EBC, I beg your pardon, the EBC has to meet a responsibility to do that final list by January 31st this year, so that it is not proper for the Prime Minister to intervene and to call an election before that final list is done. That final list is not a mere formality. That final list is a statement as to the rights of every citizen in this country, and every citizen has the right to have his name appear on that list. And I believe it is proper law and practice that that list must be done by a deadline. that deadline is the 31st of January. So that when I heard this talk around here a few weeks ago about the government, not the EBC, the government acting in a way that is not consonant with proper practice, acting to call an election before January 31st, I said, surely not. Surely not. You could not call an election before the list is properly done and properly prepared in accordance with good law and good practice. Ms. Robinson, yes. If we find that this government is pursuing an election in breach of the law, in breach of the rights of one citizen alone, we are going to go to court. But apart from going to court, I want to say this to you, Ms. Robinson. We are making ourselves politically ready for an election. We're not going to be expending all of our energies thinking about court. There's a larger court, the court of public opinion, and the court of public opinion that is against this government for its injustices committed against the people of Barbados. We are also appealing to that court of public opinion that the time has come to get rid of this government on the basis of all that I've told you here this morning. A lack of transparency, a lack of accountability, and the grave injustices that are committed against the citizens of Barbados, including by publishing a list which contains Barbadians who are alive and well and ready to vote.
In another vein, on the topic of the Auditor General, the DLP is suggesting that the Auditor General needs more power. How will you ensure that the office can investigate government spending without being blocked by the administration?
How would I do
How
it?
would you ensure that the office can investigate government without being blocked by the administration?
I say that, first of all, they need to appoint an Auditor General. They haven't appointed one. I believe it's a lady who's acting. And she has been acting for how long? Months, I think. So that there's a problem there of the department not having a head. There's the problem of understaffing. I met with Mr. Trotman, and Mr. Trotman lamented that he's been trying to find young accountants to do the work of the department in investigating government spending. Do you find it an interesting coincidence that the government is on a rampage of spending while the watchdog on government spending is inadequately staffed? Maybe you find that a coincidence. This party does not think it is a coincidence. This party thinks that it is a deliberate act on the part of government to understaff the office of the Auditor General while squandermania is taking place in this country. They all add up. They all add up. This is not good government. This is not proprietous government. This is not government that is respecting the financial resources of this country. That's not the kind of government Barbadians have. It's not. You're welcome.
Mr. Torrance, Tanisha Royal Star Commander.
Hello, Tanisha.
You mentioned that you guys, if elections call this month, you'll be ready.
Anytime they call it. Tomorrow morning, be ready.
I believe so far you guys have named 21 candidates.
21?
How
Tanisha, where you living?
Also, you guys have named all 30 of the
Yes.
candidates.
Yes. You're listening to the calling programs, aren't you? You know, it's amazing, you know, it really is amazing. I'm sorry that is your misinformation. This gentleman, he was named last, look, his name is Damien Fanis. He is running in St. Michael West. He has been the last candidate named, the 30th candidate named. Damien Fanis was named last week
Last week, Monday.
to replace the young lady who demitted. And Mr. Senator Andre Worrell, Damien Fanis, D-A-M-I-E-N, Fanis, F-A-N-U-S. He is running in the constituency of St. Michael West. And Senator Worrell next to me is running next door to him in St. Michael Central. So that while the other people out there fighting to see who can run in St. Michael Central, and I'm going to say something about St. Michael Central at the next press conference, because the constitution of this country must not be amended to give anyone a job. But we have 30 candidates in place. Please, stop listening to the calling programs.
Sharia Brathwaite, Barbados today.
Welcome, Sharia.
Just want to clarify, so you're not going to speak about the tension between U.S. and Venezuela?
Oh, we're deferring to CARICOM. Look, we're regionalists, and CARICOM is the authoritative voice on that matter. we will defer to CARICOM.
At this time, you don't have any concerns
No.
that you would like to share?
Any concerns?
That you would like to share publicly?
We are deferring to CARICOM on that matter.
Anesta Henry, CBC.
Welcome, Anesta.
Thank you. As far as you know, how many people are on the list that should not be there? Can you repeat that, just for clarity?
Oh, no, I'm saying the list had 8,291 persons.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know how many are alive and eligible, but we do know that Mr. Ainsley Granger, who's sitting there, is alive and eligible. And he was on it. And he's not the only one on it. And there are several people who have been put on that list. We know.
Okay.
And we're asking them to get themselves back on the list. And the best way to get back on that list is for the EBC to establish their registration offices in each constituency so that those disenfranchised and disadvantaged persons can go into the office, not have to catch 2 and 3 buses to get to Warrens.
Okay.
That's how they're making it difficult for the citizens of this country. What about the people overseas? We have people living overseas who are citizens, who are qualified and eligible to vote. They're on the list. You know, a Barbadian living in New York can vote. He's a citizen. He can come home and vote. They have some of them on the list as well. And people will tell me that this government is not attempting to steal the election. I say it again. They're intending and interested in stealing the election. We say that. Let them respond again. The evidence is there. He's behind there sitting down. Look at him.
Thank you. You said you're ready for elections, and my colleague would have asked about the candidates. Can you repeat again the names of the candidates and where they'll be running, including yourself? What constituency you'll be running in, so people will be clear?
Clear? Look, the nation came in here and gave me a front page when I announced that the people of St. John were asking for me to come up there. And we accepted their request. And I was on the front page with my replacement in Christchurch South, Mr. Corey Greenwich. And these two gentlemen here, and these gentlemen and lady behind here, all declared, all 30, before you leave. You want me to run through the list now? From St. Lucie? From memory? You're testing me. Ian Griffith, St. Lucie. I can write these for you. Ian Griffith, St. Lucie. Jason Phillips, St. Peter. Charles Worrell, St. James North. Ramon Goodman, St. Andrew. Randall Rowe, St. Joseph. St. James Central.
Paul
Gibson. St. James South. Pedro Graves. St. George North. David Waldron. St. George South, Miss Felicia Dujon. St. Philip North, that gentleman behind there, Mr. Simon Clark. St. Philip South, Mr. Neil Marshall. St. Philip West, Mr. David Esrick. Christchurch East Central, Mr. Quincy Jones. Christchurch East, that lady behind there, Miss Amoy Gildenborn. Christchurch West, I think he's there. Andrew is there?
Yes,
Mr. Andrew Cave. Christchurch South, Mr. Corey Greenwich. We left out Christchurch West Central, Mr. Rashid Belgrave. And we come to the St. Michael now. St. Thomas, Dr. Hincks. I left out any apart from St. Michael. St. Michael is always the last that we mentioned. The city, Dale Rowe. St. Michael North, Dr. Dawn Marie Armstrong. St. Michael Northeast, Mr. Jamal Sandyford. On the other side, St. Michael Northwest, Senator Walters. St. Michael Central, Senator Andre Worrell. St. Michael West Central, Mr. James Paul. St. Michael South Central, Mr. Richard Seeley. St. Michael South, Mr. Nathaniel Boyce. St. Michael East, Mr. Ainsley Granger, who's sitting there. They're trying to get him off the list. That's the famous one among us. He up there asking people to vote for him, and the government trying to stop him from voting. And he's doing very well, incidentally. You left out any, Andre? Oh, there, I left out St. John.
St. Michael South.
Ralph Thorne.
And St. Michael South,
Nathaniel Boyce. Southeast, Mr. Pedro Shepherd, our General Secretary. Is that all 30? I hope I wasn't invidious enough to leave out anybody. That's all, Damien? Beg your pardon? Oh yes, we'll give you a list before you, please print it. we thought y'all knew.
Actually, if I may, Leader Torn, I would have been interviewed by the nation and Barbados today, just before the vote on Monday and the day after. And those stories were supposed to be run last week, and one today that was pulled by the nation.
Senator Worrell.
Yeah.
We know that last week the BLP they have a few nominations coming up. We know last week that Ms. Tyra Tropman, who was once sitting at this table with you guys on your party, but within your party, will be going after the seat you're going after. How do you feel about this? Are you intimidated? How do you feel?
Not intimidated at all. It doesn't change my strategy.
Okay.
All right, thanks very much for the question. I am not intimidated at all. It does not change my strategy. When I entered the race as the Democratic Labour Party's candidate for St. Michael Central, I always expected that I would have to run against a Barbados Labour Party opponent. And whether it is the Speaker of the House, Arthur Holder, today or tomorrow some other person, my focus does not change. I'm in the constituency, getting to know the persons in the area, and so they would know the type of representative that I intend to be. Collaborative, someone who listens to the persons in the constituency and who will speak out and work on their behalf. Because at the end of the day, it's not about me. It is about the interests of the people of the constituency who are concerned about the crime situation, the young people who are concerned about the fact that they cannot get a job under this Barbados Labour Party government, the elderly in particular who are concerned about the deplorable state of the healthcare situation in this country, every single Barbadian who's concerned about cost of living. So whoever the Barbados Labour Party brings as a candidate, they will have to deal with the failing situation that the Barbados Labour Party has in this country. So I am not at all bothered. I am doing my work within the constituency, and I intend to continue. I am not dealing with their internal issues. I guess it is clear that they definitely have some internal problems, and they may not yet be ready for the election.
That's it. Yes, Marcy.
Oh, somebody-
Or you want to follow up on that?
Yes. Question here. Someone who is in Christchurch, West Central, is saying that they have not seen anybody in their area. So she's just realizing that there's a candidate and she would like to see that person.
Okay.
Christchurch,
They mean from
West.
the BLP?
No, from DLP.
Oh.
From the DLP.
That's Rashid Belgrave. She will see him very shortly.
Rashid Belgrave.
Yes.
If you're listening,
A young
Rashid.
attorney at law. Very bright fellow.
Yes, so she wants to see him.
Thank you very
Yes.
much. Ms. Reeves.
Now, a question here. In my research, I found that there's an Anti-Terrorism Act of 2002 that was actually amended in 2019. And so I'm asking, I don't, you're a lawyer. I want to know why would we need the domestic terrorism legislation? Is that enough? And why wasn't it done over, all these years that we've been dealing with all of this crime? So I as a legal mind, can you explain for us why would this be necessary now?
The 2002 one would have been done obviously after 9/11,
Yes.
when all of the countries collaborated and harmonized their legislative efforts. This one, domestic terrorism, we don't have that kind of terrorism here in Barbados. You find it in the United States where people shoot people on the basis of race, nationality, religion. That has not happened here. And that is why it is so inappropriate. That's why it's inapt. That is why we are saying it is an attempt to distract people into believing that you're doing something, but what you are proposing to do is inappropriate. And Mrs. Weeks, we're going to go to the source of the problem. Young men are joining gangs. Do anti-gang legislation, and there's a good reason. Jamaica, Trinidad, Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, St. Kitts, there's a good reason they did it. There is a good reason they did it, because of the problem of gangs. We have a problem of gangs in Barbados. Everybody knows that. Why is the government afraid to go after the gangs? That is the question we're going to continue to ask. Why? We're not accusing them of anything. We're asking them why are they afraid?
Yes. I'm also a bit confused. I know that at the beginning of December, the Minister of Foreign Affairs,
Yes.
Kerry Simmons, he said that terrorism, it's nowhere near Barbados. That's not even something you're to consider. This is when he was responding to the warning that came from the UK, the
Yes.
travel warning.
Yes.
And so, again, I don't know if any of you would be able to clarify that for me,
Is
because
another thing.
was he yeah?
He is saying that there's no terrorism here, and his prime minister is saying we need terrorism legislation. Isn't that a thing?
Well,
They
yeah,
have to
I
clarify,
don't know.
Ms. Weeks, not us. They have to clarify their confusion. I'm sorry to cross you, but you have just exposed government's confusion and government's contradiction, internal contradiction on the issue of terrorism. Ms. Motley is saying we need anti-terrorism legislation. Mr. Simmons is saying late last year that we don't have terrorism here
Right.
to satisfy our tourism source market.
My last question concerns the issue of crime and the blueprint that you.
Yes.
And that's been done. I think it's a couple months now that you.
More than a couple. When we did this, Andre?
I think we launched it in July.
July,
about six
months
six
ago.
months.
Yeah,
6
yeah,
months.
yeah.
I want to ask if I don't know if any of the others could answer, but in your constituencies, are you seeking to implement any of those ideas and measures that you're suggesting? Because we're in a crisis, in my opinion. And so while I know it's in a book, are you, as you move among your constituencies, are you seeking to? I know money is an issue, but is there anything in there? Because I've read a lot of it, and I mean it's very good. And I'm just wondering if you've started to implement anything, or is it something that it's a book, it's there in a book, and
Implementation is governmental. But what I will say to you is that national development begins with community development. And one of the proposals of the Democratic Labour Party will be to pursue serious community development in this country. I can take you to 11 playing fields in this country that are empty 24 hours. They say they have 11 mini stadia. That is not true. We don't have any mini stadia. But the point I'm making is that the high point of community development in Barbados was the 60s, 70s, 80s, early into the 90s as well. That has dismantled. And one of the strategies of the Democratic Labour Party in solving the problem, the national problem of violence, would be to develop ourselves at the community level. National development begins at community
and
level.
is that what is happening in your constituencies right now?
Well, I can speak for myself, for example. I spent the last 7 years taking the $2,550 they gave me, and I used to do reading classes for children on Saturdays, morning and afternoon. I do a summer camp every year, which is expensive, but the government pays me $2,500 to do it, and I do it. I spend that money and more, and more. I don't take up the people's money and hold fects at my house. I spend the money right back in the constituency, and I repeat this. One certain member of parliament quarreled with me once for publicizing the fact that I was spending the $2,550 on the people. And I had to do it. It is something that I am obliged to do. The law obliges me to spend that money in the constituency. There are representatives who do not commit it to the constituency. That is my view. But it is my responsibility. It's not my money. I'm a trustee for that money. And I plow it right back into the community. And the evidence is there. Visit my Facebook page. From day one, and even before day one, as of being a parliamentary representative, I was in the community. And I will urge all 30 of these young men and women to be in the communities,
Right.
doing programs to rescue young people, to rescue the lives of young people.
Yes.
That is where national development begins, right in the local community.
Yeah, because for me, it's a crisis, and I know that you're not in government. I know that there's some of the the ideas and so on will have to be implemented by government.
Yes.
But I think that there are things that we can do now because we're in a crisis. Clarify for me, is that 2,500, is it monthly or is
Monthly.
it? It's monthly,
They
I
gave
see.
us I think it's $2,550 a month.
Oh, wow, okay, 2,550
$2,550
per month, I
Yeah.
see.
My day camp cost me in excess of, I'm sorry to give, perhaps I shouldn't give the figure, but it's expensive. It is, and I do it every year for 2 weeks. Every year. The only year I missed was COVID. Yeah, I do it. And then we were doing reading classes, and that got stopped by COVID as well, on Saturday mornings for little children.
Thank you.
You're most welcome, always.
All right, Mr. Thorne, the final question from me. This is Brathwaite here again from Barbados today.
Yes, Ms. Brathwaite.
There has been a lot of public chatter about the situation with the transport board and the divestment. So I just wanted to find out from you if you're willing to share at this time
Oh,
any
yes.
concerns.
Oh yes, oh yes. We think it is wrong. We think that it is wrong for government to dismantle a social service. We believe in the Democratic Labour Party that government in this country has a responsibility to provide certain social services. The transport board is one of them. Housing is another one. Education is another one. Health is another one. We believe that those social services are sacred. We believe that the transport board, having been incorporated from 1955, 70 years old, that in the 70th year it should be growing as a social service, or if government wishes to do anything, government could send the buses to certain parts of Barbados where persons otherwise cannot reach. But if the government dismantles it, this Democratic Labour Party is going to reopen the transport board because it is an essential service to the commuters of this country who live in far-flung areas of Barbados, who cannot reach their destinations and who cannot be called upon to reach their destinations by Uber or by any other expensive taxi service. It is as sacred as education, and you will know that government has threatened the children of this country in relation to education by reminding them of the cost of education. But you asked about the transport board. It is this party's policy position that the transport board must remain open. This government just received 35 electric buses from China. Those buses are inefficient to be passed on. It is inefficient to pass on those buses to the ex-drivers who they're going to lay off because you can't run that efficiently. You can't make a profit. A driver cannot make money profitably running an electric bus of that size. So it is our proposal that the transport board must remain open, and if they close it, this Democratic Labour Party is going to reopen the transport board for the benefit of the people of Barbados as a social service. Profit does not only relate to finance, profit relates to the efficient movement of people to and from work and children to and from school. That is what profitability in a social service is about. It is not about the bottom line, so to speak. Most welcome.
Carlos Atwell.
Good morning, Carlos.
Hello, Carlos Atwell, Nation
Welcome.
Newspaper.
Welcome.
Senator Worrell, you spoke about disunity in the PLP. I just want to make sure, in particular, St. Michael's Central, yeah? Would you be referring to Dr. Lynette Holder also throwing her hand in the ring and the comment she would have made? Well, when it seems that the party seems to be going with Terry Trotman. Specifically, is that what you're talking about?
Well, to answer your question, you can talk about the whole process in which the Barbados Labour Party is going about now trying to remove sitting MPs. We are possibly, as they said, we could be weeks away from the election, and you are now at the last minute now trying to sneak a candidate into St. Michael's Central. You've heard about the city also being mentioned as one which will not be running again. We don't know if they will get to St. Philip North, but we've been hearing rumors of them trying to remove the sitting MP for St. Philip North, Dr. Sonia Brown. So all of this does not speak well. Then there's also Trevor Prescott in St. Michael East as well. So all of this speaks to a bit of disunity within the party. Up to the end of November, there was an article in the paper where the Speaker of the House said that he was
That's
running
right.
again.
That's right.
When they made the announcement about also giving the land to the persons in Waterford.
Correct.
He did say that he was running again. And now all of a sudden he had an epiphany. I don't know what would have caused it, but after the passage of the legislation in Parliament to adopt an independent speaker, we can now hear that the Speaker of the House of Assembly, Arthur Holder, is no longer running, and he is showing his support behind whoever came forward as a candidate. And it then, if it brought Lynette Holder, it's Holder, right?
Yes, yes.
If it brought Lynette Holder to the realization that this could be a possible injustice, because in 2 weeks, you don't give any room for any other prospective candidates in the Barbados Labour Party to step forward and put their name. That is not a transparent process of selecting candidates. You knew for a while that Cynthia Ford was not running. You had a long run up and you had about 3 or 4 persons coming into the competition. You need to be fair and allow as many people the opportunity. They often criticize the Democratic Labour Party for not being fair in how we select our candidates, but how this could be fair when you keep these things at the last minute, 2 weeks, and then other persons who may have an interest not having the opportunity to get themselves into the race to solidify themselves in the constituency. I think the same thing was done in St. James North, where we had the sitting person there, and you had someone else who Dr. Reed, who had expressed an interest. The same thing was done in St. George North, where you had the person who worked for many years with Glenn Clark, not given the opportunity to actually put herself into the race, but because you had someone of pedigree, I don't know what it is, what sort of pedigree it is, being there, that they were given high political favor. The Democratic Labour Party does not operate like that.
Correct.
We allow anyone who shows an interest in the constituency and persons who have an interest within the party and stand for the philosophies which we represent as a party, to give them fair opportunity to be a part of the process and to be nominated, and let the people of the constituencies have a say. So maybe those are the things that point to the issues within the Barbados Labour Party.
So on that same topic, with Chapani debating office, do you feel as if you have enough time to stamp your authority and cover ground and, have that solidification within, I believe it's Semeco West?
That would be Damien Fox.
Do you think you have enough time with
Yes.
Shaquani debating office right now on the same topic of what Senator Worrell is making reference to?
Thank you for your question. To me, time doesn't matter. It's the work that you put in and how much that you put in, and the quality of work that you put in. I've made a commitment to this party and to the people of St. Michael West to get out there and ensure that they see what representation with a capital R looks like. Not with a common R, a capital R. And I know that my colleagues always tell me that it's not good to make promises. But I promise to the people of St. Michael West, I will neither abandon you nor forsake you. And you will see that in my representation. And I plan to hit the ground running. I have hit the ground running. So time is not a factor to me. It's the quality of work and how hard I intend to work.
Carlos, anything else? I was going to mention Peter Phillips to you. They were trying to get rid of him.
And Charles Griffith in St. John.
Yeah, yeah. I won't call his name in here though.
Any other questions from the media?
That's it. So thank you very much. Back to you, Chair. Just thank them for coming.
Thank you very much. This brings an end to our press conference. We want to thank the various media houses, Marcy Week Show, the Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation, News on the Go, the Starcom Network, Barbados Today, and the Nation News for coming out. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.